I spent 3 years chasing my dreams, only to watch them slip through my fingers like sand. I trek every hour, created elaborate plans, and still found myself stuck in the same place. What I discovered next changed everything. And it wasn't about working harder. Isn't the uncomfortable truth? 92% of people abandon their goals not because they lack desire, but because they're missing a critical psychological component that I'm about to share with you. This isn't another generic motivation video. It's about the hidden mental framework that separates those who achieve their dreams from us, who only dream about them. Let's talk about creating your quest map. Every hero needs a detailed map to navigate treacherous terrain, and your journey toward long-term achievement is no different. This isn't just about willpower and motivation. It's about strategic planning and understanding the psychological landscape you're about to traverse. The most insidious trap on your journey is what psychologists call the planning fallacy. We're naturally wired to be overly optimistic about timelines, consistently underestimating how long tasks will take by 40 to 60%. This isn't just occasional miscalculation. It's a systematic bias that sabotages 78% of long-term goals before you've even begun. Your brain is essentially lying to you about what's possible in a given time frame. Here's where strategic buffering becomes your first power-up on this quest. By simply adding a 20% time buffer to all your plans, you create a realistic safety net that accommodates the inevitable obstacles and delays. This isn't pessimism. It's pragmatic realism that prevents the motivation crash that comes when you repeatedly miss your own deadlines. When your timelines align with reality, your confidence in your ability to follow through remains intact. But even with perfect planning, you'll face what I call the 5 dragons that guard your path to achievement. The first, and perhaps most formidable, is present bias. Your brain's natural tendency to choose immediate gratification over long-term rewards. This isn't a character flaw or lack of discipline. It's evolutionary programming that once helped our ancestors survive in resource-scarce environment. In today's world of endless immediate pleasures, this same programming actively works against your long-term goals. The remaining dragons include perfectionism, the paralyzing fear of imperfect action, decision fatigue, the deterioration of decision quality after multiple choices, task aversion, emotional resistance to specific activities, and low self-efficacy, doubting your capability to succeed. Each requires a different strategy to defeat. And without identifying which dragons specifically block your path, you'll waste energy fighting the wrong battles. Olympic athletes understand this battlefield intimately. They've mastered a crucial technique for maintaining motivation through years of grueling training: visualization of both success and failure. While most people only visualize positive outcomes, elite performers mentally rehearse potential obstacles and setbacks. This dual visualization creates psychological readiness for the inevitable challenges, preventing demoralization when they appear. When an Olympic athlete faces a setback, it doesn't register as failure, but as an anticipated part of the journey, something they've already mentally overcome. The time management insights of Laura Vanderkam offer another powerful weapon. Her research challenges the common belief that we simply don't have enough time. The reality is that we all have exactly 168 hours each week, sufficient for a well-balanced life encompassing career, family, social activities, and even adequate sleep and exercise. The problem isn't lack of time, but lack of awareness about where those hours actually go. Most people have shockingly little insight into their true time allocation patterns. Strategic time tracking reveals uncomfortable truths about the gap between your perceived and actual time investments. This awareness allows you to identify your personal game changers, the 20% of actions that create 80% of your result. By focusing your limited energy on these high-leverage activities, you create a much more direct path through the motivational wilderness, avoiding exhaustion from diffused efforts. Another powerful technique is mental contrasting, formalized as WOOP. Wish, outcome obstacle. And this framework creates psychological preparation for obstacles before they appear. First, you clearly define your wish, goal, then vividly imagine the outcome before deliberately identifying obstacles, and finally creating specific if-then plans for overcoming each obstacle. This contrasting between desired future and potential barriers creates a psychological readiness that sustains motivation when difficulties arise. What if everything you've been told about staying motivated is fundamentally wrong? Beyond all these strategies lies an uncomfortable truth. The motivation that launched your journey is biologically programmed to vanish. This isn't a failure of character or willpower. It's by design, and recognizing this predictable valley is where 92% of people give up, while the remaining 8% discover something far more powerful. That initial surge of excitement when starting something new, whether a fitness regimen, business venture, or creative project, is merely the catalyst, never meant to sustain you through the entire journey. Your brain experiences a neurochemical honeymoon period, flooding your system with dopamine and adrenaline that make anything seem possible. But this biological response is temporary by nature, creating the motivation dip that so many mistake for failure. When this inevitable dip occurs, procrastination often emerges, but not for the reasons most people think. What we label as simple laziness is actually a sophisticated psychological defense mechanism. When you postpone working toward your goals, you're not just avoiding work. You're protecting your self-concept and identity from the threat of potential failure. This makes procrastination a complex response to perceived threats against your self-worth, not a character flaw. Understanding this paradox reveals why traditional motivation tactics so often fail. External motivators, as rewards, validation, can jumpstart behavior, but rarely maintain it. The critical mindset shift comes when you transform these external drivers into internal ones. While external motivation depends on outside forces, internal motivation draws from purpose, why this matters deeply to you, mastery, the satisfaction of improving, and autonomy, your sense of control over the process. This internal drive becomes especially powerful when paired with micro-exections, tiny, achievable steps that bypass your brain's resistance to intimidating tasks. When you break down write a book into write one paragraph, you're not just making the task manageable, you're actively rewiring neural pathways. Each small win releases dopamine, creating a positive feedback loop that builds momentum and forms new habits. These micro victories construct a psychological ladder that lets you climb past mental barriers one rung at a time. This approach aligns perfectly with the 1% rule, which demonstrates how seemingly insignificant daily improvements compound dramatically over time. If you improve just 1% each day, after a year you'll be 37 times better, not merely 365% improved, but exponentially transformed through the power of compound growth. The math reveals why goals that appear impossible at the outset become inevitable through consistent incremental progress. Another powerful tool in sustaining motivation is the strategic vision board, far more than wishful thinking. This technique harnesses your brain's reticular activating system, RAS, a filtering mechanism that directs your attention toward what you consistently visualize. By creating a visual representation of your goals and placing it where you'll see it daily, you're essentially programming your subconscious to recognize opportunities aligned with your aspirations, even when your conscious mind isn't actively focused on them. The battle for sustained motivation is ultimately a battle for focused attention. Our struggle with distraction isn't new. In 1925, inventor Hugo Gernsback created the isolator, a bizarre helmet designed to block out all visual and auditory distractions. While his solution seems extreme, it highlights our century-long recognition that focus is the currency of achievement. Our modern solutions, whether digital minimalism, time boxing techniques, or environmental design, all serve to protect this precious resource. The ultimate antidote to motivational fatigue is the flow state, that condition of complete immersion where time seems to disappear and work becomes effortless. Enter flow consistently. Environmental design becomes crucial. Create a dedicated workspace free from interruptions with minimal noise and visual clutter. This purposeful setting activates neurological triggers that facilitate deep focus. When you find yourself feeling bored, increase the challenge. When anxiety rises, tap into your existing skills. This balancing act between challenge and ability is the sweet spot where flow and unsustainable motivation flourishes. And so we arrive at the most powerful revelation on your journey, the art of strategic elimination. As Michael Porter wisely noted, the essence of strategy is deciding what not to do. This truth, echoed in Oliver Burkeman's 4,000 Weeks, reveals that your most powerful choices aren't about what to add to your life, but what to cut away. By intentionally choosing what not to pursue, you create the breathing room your dreams require. This isn't about limitation, it's about liberation. Your obstacles aren't roadblocks, they're waypoints that guide your transformation. The dragons guarding your path aren't there to defeat you. They exist to ensure you become worthy of the achievement waiting beyond them.